The seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Hello and welcome to the Bhoycie bus. I know what we're all thinking. Hold on the new. That's not our usual styling, profiling, limousine riding, jet flying, wheeling, dealing, kiss stealing, son of a gun. Woo! Russell Bhoyce. You're absolutely correct. I am not Russell Bhoyce. My name is David Logue, and I am for today only your post-match pish host, and I am joined by a huge lineup, regular contributors to the show. We've got Phil McGinley, we've got Big Bad Bruce, we've got Terry, and we've got Scott Cameron. Gents, as Bhoycie says, how the devil are you?
Fine, man.
Awesome.
All good.
We're doing all right, yeah?
Yep.
That was an interesting game. I think we can all say before the game we might have been quite happy to take a draw. Mm-hmm. Phil, you were at the game today, so I'm going to come straight to you. How was the atmosphere at the game? What was your overall view of the game? And how was the stadium once the game had finished?
Atmosphere pre-match was obviously absolutely buzzing, as you would expect. I don't know how well it came across the telly, but it was bouncing at the start. We didn't start terribly well in the game, so naturally you get that thing that we sometimes see in European games where the crowds start to sort of die down, maybe get on top of the players a wee bit. Once we took the lead, though, again, the place was absolutely bouncing, but just didn't take our chances, man. We had so many. Went in at half-time 1-0. I'd imagine Rangers have gone in there thinking, how the fuck are we still only 1-0 down? They came out with a bit of confidence. They've done well in the second half, and in the end, it is what it is. It's just delayed the inevitable, I think. And overall, even in the post-match, though, there was lap of honour and a real sort of like, we'll take it. It's not, ideally want to get it done as quickly as possible, but overall, it was all right for what it was, man. Done okay in the end, I suppose.
Yeah, it was definitely a game of two halves, I have to say. I thought we come out the traps flying, and then Rangers, they managed to, they also kind of came out the traps flying, and arguably they might have had the best first 5 minutes spell. Ryan Kent had a great chance, but his own left back felt he was trying to make a a name for himself and ended up tackling his own teammate. Now, Terry, before I come to you, I just want to get some things out of the way. I know that Bhoycie is not always a fan of getting all this kind of stuff over, but listen, we want to support the podcast as best we can. And one of the best ways of doing that is visiting our sponsors at fanboyfootball.com, where you can get all your Bhoycie Bus merch as well as other footballing merchandise. So if you want to help if you want to help support the Bhoycie Bus, one of the best ways for you to do that is just jump online, have a wee look at our sponsors and see if there's any of the 3 Bhoycie Bus t-shirts that you would like to start sporting down the high street. You never know who you might bump into that might go, whoa, I like that guy. I like that t-shirt. I need to get one of them. Terry, I do believe that you have a couple of shout-outs you want to put out there. So let's get that firing right off the bat.
Yes, David. As you know, the Bhoycie Bus is, in the last couple of weeks, really starting to get popular, and subscribers on the increase, viewers on the increase, and we just want to keep that going. So everybody that's watching, please like, please subscribe. I've got a few shout outs. Believe it or not, I've been on the bus 4 times now, and I live in a small town in County Antrim in Northern Ireland, and there's people coming up to me and going, "You're the guy that's on the Bhoycie Bus," and that's brilliant. After what's Bhoycie Bus been going? It's been going 4 months, 5 months.
4 months, yeah.
I believe.
And there's people coming up to me in my wee town and going, "Oh, you're the boy from the Bhoycie Bus," and I've had. This week alone, I've had 4 messages going, "If you're on this weekend, can you give me a shout out?" So I've got a few shout outs. I'm going to give a few shout outs here. I've got a shout out for Ross Bell from Belfast, who is on he's subscribed. He's on the bus. He has it on Spotify. I've got Lexi Johnson in Australia. Bhoycie Bus is hitting Australia.
Wow.
I have got Frank Robb in Randallstown, County Antrim, whose house I am in right now. This is his wee home bar straight up behind me there. So that's my brother, Frank Robb. I've got Adrian Kenny, also in Randallstown. And the last one is my uncle, Jared Robb, who is my godfather, is also, well, he's not in Randallstown. He's from Randallstown. He's in Antrim. And I just want to let my uncle Jared know he was my godfather. He was really, really good to me when I was younger, a lot of years ago. And he always keeps me going about. He bought me a dartboard when I was 12 or 13, and he hasn't let it go for over 30 years now about how he bought me a dartboard. So I'm going to repay that favour. Uncle Jared, I have just bought you a Bhoycie Bus t-shirt, and I will have that with you within 7 working days. There you go. That's all the
Awesome.
shout out.
Terry, let's expand on a wee bit on how we felt the match went when you were watching it. How did you feel when you were watching the game? Did you feel it was a bit of a nervy affair, or what's your overall thoughts on the game?
It's probably the calmest I've been in one of these games. I'm 44, coming 45. I didn't feel much going into it. I was very confident. Obviously, that 6-point buffer with 4 games to go means I felt today was pretty much a free hit. Now, Phil, you were at the match, and I know that Sky Sports can be a wee bit creative with their microphones and things like that, but it felt to me there was a wee bit of extra gusto in You'll Never Walk Alone. There was a wee bit of extra gusto in the Celtic song. It just felt coming across on Sky that the fans were up for it. The fans were ready to go. I don't know if that's real life or if that's just Sky being creative. And I was very confident. I didn't see any way we would lose the game. I would have shook her hand in a draw before the game, but having watched the game, I'm normally really, really nervous during these games, but at no stage did I feel nervous. Even when Kent missed his chance, I don't know. I think the 6-point buffer gave us enough wriggle room that even if we lost the game, we were still in control. And I think that took a lot of the nerves out of it for me, albeit it's the Glasgow Derby, albeit you want to win the game, you don't want to lose it. I suppose a draw's a wee bit of a strange one because it's not enough where you want to celebrate, but it's not enough where you want to go mad and get stuck in and have a rant about what went wrong kind of thing. It's just it's a little bit numb, but in the grand scheme of things, it's more than good enough result for us. It just pushes the title party out by 7 days. We'll do it next week instead of today.
Yeah, I think my first comment I did mention I thought we come flying at the traps. that was my mistake. I meant to say the Rangers. I felt they came out the traps a bit more, but it didn't last too long. I was watching the game with my dad, and we both sat there for the first 10 minutes thinking there wasn't as much of a ferocity to the game. There was a bit almost the pressing from Rangers. They seemed like they were quite happy to quite just kind of sit back and allow us to play for a bit, which disappointed me a little bit that we didn't take advantage of that, because I felt we were quite slack on our passing. Scott, when you were watching the game today, what did you make of our midfield selection? And did you think that maybe we could have been a bit more slicker on the ball?
Well, I think basically that's 2 games in a row they've overrun us. When we bullied in midfield the last 2 games by them. Hatate shouldn't be anywhere near it. He should be safe till next season now. You know, I mean, if Gucci was fit, I would have played him, or I would have started with Turnbull or somebody like that. But like I say, that's like 2 games in a row they've like absolutely bullied us in midfield, and that's why they're getting over. Once a day.
It's interesting that you brought Gucci up quite early on, and this brings me to you, Bruce. I put the question out here: are we playing the wrong Japanese midfield maestro? We haven't seen Gucci play since since that terrible tackle that he had in the cup game. And interestingly, Ange made a comment as to why we're not seeing much of Gucci. And what he said was that intrigued me was he said that he just thinks that Gucci's just been a bit unlucky that he's not been able to get into the team because of how well obviously we've been playing and how well the midfield's been playing. Now, on today's evidence, and perhaps in the cup game against Rangers, that there's enough evidence to suggest that maybe there is wiggle room to make way for Gucci.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen enough of him, have we, to really be able to sort of develop an opinion on, where he fits in the team, whether he's a first team starter or if he's a good backup on the bench, or even if he's just way off it, he could be. I think today would have been a perfect game for him to come in, apart from the magnitude of the event, and he's not been part of the team, so it would have been in my opinion, quite a weird decision to sort of slot him in when he's not been in the team, probably lose a bit of chemistry or like team intelligence and stuff like that. So yeah, for me, he shouldn't have been anywhere near the team today. It's a bit confusing that he hasn't been anywhere near the starting lineup. We've seen him once or twice, but it's just fleeting moments. I think Hatate deserves his place in the first team, but he's knackered and he shouldn't have been playing today. He shouldn't have started. For me, it would have been Turnbull all day long. He'd been fresher. Hatate's literally been saying in the media, "I'm really tired." And, we're still throwing him in a game like that today. We could win the league if we win. It's a Celtic Park. It's against Rangers. And you throw him in, but the guy's fatigued. Didn't make any sense to me. I think that we proper missed a trick throwing him in the starting lineup. I'd have put Turnbull in all day long.
Yeah, I was quite surprised that we didn't see much of Turnbull today. I thought he provides a bit more quality with his passing than we've seen with Hatate. I really do like Hatate, and I really want him to do well. Like I said on the Thursday show, I think he started away up here, and there wasn't much room to go any further, considering the amount of game time that he's had, obviously in Japan and now obviously here. Speaking of Japanese players, Phil, what was your view on Maeda today? I think he played reasonably well. I felt that he was maybe a couple of wasteful crosses. However, I thought he obviously made up for some of those crosses with the assist to Jota.
Yeah, it's one of those up and down. You saw like both ends of the spectrum with him, where he's got the goal assist, he's done really well in there, get the cross, and it was pretty much deja vu to the Abada goal from the 3-0 game, where it came across from that side and the wingers nipped in front of Barisic and tucked it away. And but yeah, you've also seen the sort of like, you know, bad side of it where he's missed a hell of a few chances. You know, there was that one in the second half where it just broke him, maybe about, I think he's like level maybe the penalty spot, so about 12 yards out, and he stuck it over the bar, and it's like, oh, he's not even tested McGregor. It's like, oh man, because again, we made more than enough chances to win that convincingly. I know in the second half we you know, we were overrun a wee bit, but there was still enough in the first half, especially. We could have been going in 2 or 3-0 up easily. But yeah, he's had a few chances. I think in the first half as well, did he not have a header at the back post where it came right to him perfectly, and he's just scuffed it by the post. But yeah, he's still doing well. I mean, Eddie, you can't really criticise him. You know, he's overall had a good contribution since he's come in. But again, and same goes for Kyogo. Sometimes a wee bit of composure's needed, because there was one chance in particular that Kyogo scuffed as well, where Maeda's broke down that wing. He's got all the time to pick out the cross. Kyogo's made the run. He's matched it. You know where Maeda's going to put it. He's put it perfectly there, and he's put it over the bar from about, 6 yards out or something. And yeah, again, it's just a frustrating one in terms of some of the chances we squandered. But overall, Maeda, it was a bit of an up and down game for him, I would say.
Yeah, it was. He's quite a frustrating player to watch at times, because you can see what he's trying to do. And I think maybe after we get this season over with and he gets a good full pre-season under his belt with his Celtic teammates, I think we might see maybe the best of Maeda.
Yeah.
Terry, now, I know we like to say that Phil is our stat man. However, I'm going to throw this one to you. Looking at the stats today, I felt like the game, how do I put this? I almost think that the game showed how close we've come from last season. We were 25 points behind Rangers last season. We didn't really leave a glove on them at all. Now that's is that game number 4 now? They haven't beat us in 90 minutes. Do you feel that today's game has shown how close Celtic and Rangers maybe are at the minute?
I thought today was 50-50 right down the middle, to be honest. They started really well. First 20, I didn't think we settled really well. They had that chance through Kent. And see, to be honest, just a shout out to Ralston, to be honest. Ralston, he was beat by Kent, but it was Ralston that got back and resolved that situation, which we now expect from Tony Ralston, because he's an established first-team ready player. And yeah, I was probably a little bit concerned about today's game going in, because Kent in the past against Ralston has had some success, but I think the chance that Kent missed today epitomised the difference between Kent and Jota, because it was the exact same chance that both had at either end. And Kent missed his and Jota scored his, and Jota's goal was very reminiscent of Barra's goal against Rangers in the last game, where Barisic switched off and got caught. And you could probably argue, yeah, Tony Ralston switched off a wee bit and got caught, but at the end of the day, Kent didn't put it in. And if you're talking about stats, if you look at stats, Kent's goals and assists, sometimes he looks really, really dangerous. He looks like a good player, but I think a lot of the time Kent's just running across the pitch. He's going from left to right. He's just running across. He's not actually making any inroads. He doesn't get goals. He doesn't get assists. And that's the difference between him and Jota in terms of class. Jota took his chance. He scored the goal. Kent missed his and didn't. But in terms of the whole game overall, I'd probably say it was 50-50 game. I don't think we did enough to say we should have won the game. They obviously had that chance late on where Zakala hit the inside of the post. It could have easily gone over the line. It didn't. Overall, the whole game, I'm happy to take a draw, but when you're 1-0 up, and we were 1-0 up in the semi-final as well, and I felt quite comfortable in both games, but we haven't won either of those two games. But because of the 6-point buffer that I keep talking about, I'm not going to get annoyed about it. I'm not going to get concerned about it. I'd love to have won the game. I'd love to be sitting here and we beat them, but we didn't. But before the game, I took a draw. Any of us would have took a draw. We're just pushing things out by a week. Overall, probably on the overall balance of things, slightly disappointed. I thought we could have pushed a little bit harder today. I thought we could have really gone for it and took the win. But in terms of the title, we're pushing.
Delaying the inevitability, mate, and delaying the inevitability. This is not. I want to make sure that we make the point across here that this is not a negative take on the match at all. I think we can all agree that, like you said, we would have taken the draw today if before the game started. I think we would just. There's a little. Of course, we're going to be a little disappointed we didn't beat our rivals today, but it's just putting the champagne back in the ice bucket just for another week. I think it's just going to make that champagne just taste a little bit sweeter. Put them through hopefully put them through some more misery next week, and then we can.
It felt a bit like a wee bit reminiscent. There was a game a few years ago in Brendan's first season where we were well ahead at that point. We were clearly going to win the league, and they drew one each of us where Clint Hill scored a late equaliser. The day felt a bit like that one where we were ahead at half time with Foot being brilliant, and then second half they picked up and got a late equaliser. It was frustrating that day as well, coming away, because you always want to beat them, but in the grand scheme of things, in the bigger picture, it's not going to make a massive difference. So come the end of the season, we'll just shrug our shoulders at this one as well, just like, that happened.
So I'm seeing a few comments of people asking where Bhoycie is. Bhoycie was at the game today with Regan, so we've stepped in to cover the post-match piss show.
Post-match.
Yeah. So what I'm going to pass this on to you now, Scott. Big game Jota has arrived. I think that was one of his better performances against Rangers. There was a lot of question marks whether he can do it in the big games, and I think he proved that today. Despite the result, I'm very positive on Jota's performance today, and I couldn't help but enjoy the badge slap. Hopefully that wasn't just an empty badge slap, and it's a sign for things to come next season. Scott, what's your views on big game Jota? Has he arrived in this fixture?
Well, like I was saying in the group chat earlier on, I think the only thing that's been missing for his game is Kyogo being in the team, because they seem to be like, they've got a really good understanding, and I think that's basically what's missing for the last few months with Kyogo not being there, and it's just a bit of a coincidence in the last couple of games that he started like putting the performance back in. Come on, I mean.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd agree when we saw Kyogo in the Ross County game, and obviously that sublime pass or cross from Jota. I think that was a perfect example of maybe what Jota has been missing from his game lately. It was the partnership that he managed to forge at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, because it's like back to. It looks like he's back to like early season form. It was just the two of them, Yeah. I mean, I could be wrong about that, like, but it's just the impression you get.
I totally agree with that. I would totally agree with that. It was one of the first things that came to my mind when he scored the goal last week. Would you agree with that, Phil?
Because when you think about it, the timeline, we've talked about how Jota's form's not been as good as the first half. It's still been okay, but there's been a level to it. And you think about it, Kyogo's been out since Boxing Day. So it kind of marries up when you look at the second half of the season. You're like, well, Kyogo's barely played, but yeah, the last two games, Jota and Kyogo, linking up again, so that's going to have a positive effect on Jota. So that's very, very good observation, that one, in terms of, I never even thought to correct that, but then when you actually think about it, it's like, it could have been something to it. But hopefully Jota can keep it going, man, and sign that deal. That'll be very nice for the summer, man. Keep him for next season.
Just on the half-hour mark today, there was a ball from Kyogo to Jota that was very reminiscent of Jota's ball to Kyogo last week. And I know that there was a lot of chat across a lot of pods over the last couple of weeks about Jota and was he as good at the start of the season and did he have things in his mind and things like that. I mean, at the end of the day, the guy was coming back from an injury, and when he went off injured, it's the same time that Kyogo was injured, and I think there's a lot to read into the fact that they're both now back in the team at the same time, because Kyogo's movement and the runs that he makes are very, very clever. And I think there's a lot to be said for the fact they're both in, because Jota and Kyogo linked up really well October, November time. I think back to probably my favourite moment of the whole season was against Ferencváros, where Jota pinged that ball, Kyogo trapped it and banged it. Those two have got a great relationship. And last week, it was a ball from Jota to Kyogo, and it could very easily have been today Jota or Kyogo's ball into Jota. And I just think they're very, very clever footballers, and to have two of them in the same team at the same time is the right thing. And probably leading on to one of the things you want to talk about, David, is maybe around Kyogo starting over Giakoumakis, perhaps.
That's a perfect segue there for me, Terry. You're on not only is Jota on the same wavelength as Kyogo, but you seem to be on the same wavelength as me. So, have we seen where Chaos sits in the pecking order after seeing the timeline? The starting lineup. Bruce, you're shaking your head there, mate.
I am, yeah. I could give a more elaborate answer. I'm just going to say no. I think, the team selection today was based on the opposition, and it was based on a game plan. And that game plan was based on what we thought we were going to be confronted with by them. So I think just Kyogo started because we wanted the balls in behind the defence. We wanted those mazy runs, and we wanted to run the defence from left to right and get them out of position. I think that was the game plan. Giakoumakis or Giakoumakis, like he's a target man. He's got skills, but he's a predator. He's a penalty box predator. So maybe the game plan wasn't to get it out on the wings and cross it in to get a tap in. Maybe it was, we know that we're going to be attacked right from the beginning, and maybe if their midfield is on point and performing as to their game plan, and they execute it really well, then maybe we're going to have to cut out our midfield and send it long and send it behind. So I think that was the only reason. I don't think Gigi has lost his place in the pecking order. I don't think he's been bumped down at all. I think it's just horses for courses. That's all it was. And you saw him coming on because we had a goal and our game plan wasn't working. So there you go.
That's the thing. The game plan didn't really work. I'm starting to be, and I'm getting a little concerned that Rangers fans won't be fearing Kyogo as much as I think we were hoping. It's been a few games now where he hasn't really made much of an impact. And the first two games weren't really his fault. Obviously, he was put out to the left to allow for Edouard to be in the team, despite his head being turned to Crystal Palace. And obviously, he missed the 3-0 game through injury. So obviously he didn't feature in that game, and he came on as a substitute in the cup game, and he really wasn't up to speed. And I can't remember how far into the game it was, but it was reasonably far into the first half. He'd only had one touch. So I'm starting to be concerned that maybe Kyogo doesn't strike the fear into the hearts as Rangers fans as maybe our previous strikers and Dembele and Edouard have. And to be honest, I was disappointed, and I love Kyogo. I love watching play, but I couldn't help but be disappointed that we didn't start Chaos today. And I felt once he came on in the first 5 minutes of him being on, I thought that's why that's what he brings to the game. He did start to cause a bit of chaos, as we like to say, and maybe arguably our best 5 minutes spell before leading to the Rangers goal. Scott, what's your views on Chaos, and do you feel that he should have started today, or do you agree with Bruce that he's not lost his place in the pecking order, but he just wasn't? Ange didn't feel like he was the right fit for the start of the game.
I think it's pretty simple. I think it's the fact that Kyogo's Andrew's first big signing. So if he's fit, he starts in Andrew's eyes, as far as I'm concerned. No matter how well Giakoumakis was playing, it was his first big signing. You know what I mean? I think the Andrew's eyes. I think if Kyogo's fit, he starts, no matter what. Because if that wasn't the case, he surely would have started Giakoumakis today, but he didn't. You know.
That's fair. That's fair. Phil?
The thing is with the Giakoumakis Kyogo thing, I don't think that was the issue today, because I think that Kyogo would be fine up front. I feel that the bigger issue was midfield. We were just over. I think it's hard for us to get it right, because the personnel, we clearly need more big bruisers in the squad, but unfortunately we're at a stage now where we just need to get over the line. That'll be something that'll get addressed in the summer, because like O'Reilly was very off it in terms of like getting supply up to the front line today. And even when Rogic came on, a couple of wee touches here and there initially when he came on, but he just faded out of the game. And obviously we've talked about Hatate, what's going to happen there. So I think Kyogo can work against them, but it's all about what's happening behind him, getting those balls in behind. Like Bruce said, you need people to be supplying those balls into the channel, because he's not going to, if he can't give him anything to work off of, then it's going to make him look like he's not doing much. So that might not necessarily be the issue. Giakoumakis, when he did come on, yeah, I totally agree in terms of like we were going long a few times. He was winning a few good knock-ons and wasn't afraid to go up against Goldson and Bhoycie, but the wee knock-ons he was winning just weren't coming off for him. He was putting them out to wide, and maybe Maeda couldn't catch it and so forth. So there was a few frustrating bits today, but I'd say in the grand scheme of things, we'll just take it and move on, I guess, and just get to the finish line now.
Terry, you'd like to jump in there?
I see it totally differently. I thought today, compared to the Scottish Cup semi-final, I thought we stuck up for ourselves a lot more. And from the game I watched, I thought Kyogo was instrumental in that. He banged Lundstrom onto his arse within the first 10 minutes. He also put Barisic onto his arse. And there was one, I can't remember, there was one other one. I thought Kyogo was the one man that was, compared to the semi-final game, where we were standing in the referee's face going, please give us free kicks, please help us out, we're getting overdone physically here. I thought Kyogo was the man that took it to them. And yeah, do you know what? He's a wee man. I thought Ange would have picked him. I thought Ange would have went for him. And in my mind and in Ange's mind, I think he's gone for Kyogo because he's a better footballer. He is a better footballer over Giakoumakis. That's not me saying Giakoumakis isn't good. Giakoumakis is superb, and he's done a great job for us. But in the grand scheme of things, Kyogo is a better footballer. But the one thing, Giakoumakis gives you that physical presence, but I also thought Kyogo gave us that. And he put the foot in on Lundstrom. He put the foot in on Barisic. He cleaned somebody else out. I thought in this game, compared to the last game, we stood up for ourselves a lot more. And I thought Kyogo led the line on that. And, I was really impressed with Kyogo. I was disappointed when he came off because he'd done all the running, he'd done all the closing down. I thought he was a good physical presence. I really did.
That's a fair point. He definitely does get himself stuck about. And yeah, there's no doubt about it. Kyogo is one of the best players in the Kinch at the minute. There's no doubt about it. I mean, all his teammates have said, we've seen him on Celtic's Twitter when they get interviewed. They always talk about how clever he is. Matt O'Reilly, he made a comment of like it's the kind of player that suits him perfectly for his style of the runs that he makes. It suits O'Reilly absolutely perfectly. I know Roy Keane's on the show today. Anthony Ralston on Thursday. Roy Keane today. Nonsense, absolute nonsense. So, will we finally see Chaos and Kyogo start together as of next week? Look, I'm seeing comments here saying that don't be so negative. Absolutely not negative. I think we just have to talk about some of the points that's been noted down today. What we've seen, we're just obviously making a discussion about that. We may not necessarily agree with what's been said, but it creates discussion. The league's wrapped up. It is, and that can be recorded and put all over Twitter. If like we've won the Copa del Kinch, it's finished. We've got it sorted. And I think we should maybe go for the juggler next week and we start Chaos and Kyogo together. Phil, is that something that you'd like to see? Or would you rather just stick to one or the other?
I think it's possible it can happen. I would like to see it, where I'm trying to second guess Ange if he's going to do it or not. Who knows? The game next week, though, is against Hearts, who are the only team in the top 6 that literally have hee-haw on the line. All they're thinking about is a cup final. They'll look to make sure all their first-team players don't pick up injuries. I can imagine Hearts not really taking it too seriously next week. So it is a perfect chance to throw that in there. But again, I say as fans, I think we're all shouting for it. We'd love to see it, but I just don't know what Ange is going to do. He seems to know best. We keep on talking about how Atati needs a rest and he keeps playing them. He works him in training every week, so I don't know. I think it can work. I don't think it would be it causes major problems. So yeah, my hope is to see it, but whether we will, I don't know.
Bruce?
I don't think it'll happen. Don't get me wrong. I think it would be a deadly combination. Obviously, you have to move Kyogo out wide. But I think Ange really likes Maeda. So I think he's a stick on the left. So you'd have to be moving Kyogo out to the right. We've already seen today Jota accommodating Maeda by moving over to the right. I know they switched mid-game. But basically then you'd be looking at, if you stick Chaos up front and Kyogo on the right, then you're putting Jota on the bench. If I'm honest, I think it's more sort of tactical and contractual. I think we're deep in talks with Jota about signing. And one of the main things is he's saying, I want to be playing. I want to be a first starter. And if Ange puts him on the bench and starts Kyogo on the right wing when he's primarily been deployed up front, what sort of message does that send out to Jota? It says, you are our first choice left winger, but I want to play Maeda there, so you have to move over to the right. But if Kyogo's fit and Giakoumakis is fit as well, you're on the bench, mate. Do you want to go back to Benfica or do you want to stay here? And he's like, I'm going back to Benfica, or I'm going to take the next offer that's there because I want first team football. So I think Jota is a stick on because we need to get his signature. And I think that's just the top and bottom of it. Whether it's going to be better to have Kyogo on the right and Giakoumakis up front, I think it's irrelevant because we're trying to keep a prized asset.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that, Bruce. I think, this 40 million that's coming into the bank, 6 million of that has to be splashed right away in getting Jota signed. Hopefully he wants to sign. I'd like to think this slapping of the chest is a sign of come and get me. I want to play here. Yeah. But we've seen it all before. We've seen empty badge kisses in the past, and I really hope that isn't what we've seen today.
I'm glad
Scott. Sorry, I want to go, Bruce. Before.
Sorry, mate. Sorry. I'm glad you said that because that ties in with what I mean. If he's doing the badge pump and he's starting and he's playing the full match and he's doing that when he scores, we said sign this contract and we guarantee you first team football. You'll be a stick on the right wing or the left wing. It doesn't matter, but you're our first choice. And he's gone, you know what? I might just do that. Let's see if we qualify for the Champions League. He scored that goal and he's gone, this is where I belong and I am the first choice. And if you take him out of the team, I don't know, I think you risk losing him.
He is a game changer, Jota. He's the guy that, he loves to create chances, he loves to entertain, but it's not just entertaining for the sake of entertaining. He has an end product. He doesn't just do something in the middle of the field that doesn't mean anything. I've always said about Ryan Kent is Ryan Kent's obviously a very good football player, but he tends to do it in the wrong parts of the pitch. I think he does all these step overs in the middle of the pitch, but it doesn't mean anything, trying to show off. Whereas I think where Jota does it, he does it to create something and usually pulls it off. Scott, do you want to see Jota sign? And of course, do you want to see big CCV join him?
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to see the two of them. Definitely. Get the money spent. Come on, I mean. But
The money's there. The money's there.
Yeah.
Get it spent.
I mean, if he doesn't sign, I mean, there's been links that sold back in for Bodo Glimt as well.
Hmm.
I mean, he'd be a good sign if Jota didn't like sign the deal. I mean, but
Sign them both.
yeah,
Yeah,
Would
sign
we-
both. I don't see why we don't sign both. If we're going to possibly get the boy for Bodo Glimt on a free, I don't see why we wouldn't even.
well, you like to see the money's
Attempt to
there,
get
isn't it? The money's there.
To me, Solbakken looks like he can play on the right. He could play through the middle. When I watched the games against Bodo, he looked like the best player on that side. And if we could get him, even if we get Jota, I would still bring him in. He looks like a superb footballer. And to quote Anthony Haggerty, who I really like listening to, to Anthony Haggerty.
No.
You can't get enough good footballers, and Solbakken to me is a good footballer, and I don't care if Jota signs. I'd still bring Solbakken in if he's available, and we can get him. We can get him for the right money. I'd still bring him in.
Yeah, 2 players for every position.
Yeah.
2 first team quality starters for every position, and I think that's what we're
You gotta be paid
definitely.
there, Terry.
I've got an extra jumping in here on the video.
Welcome aboard the bus. Hope you've got your ticket paid for there, mate. Bruce, do you feel that CCV knows deep down in his heart Celtic is the club for him?
I'm not sure. I think
You're not sure?
I think he's quite a calm, cool, collected character. I think he doesn't like giving too much away. I think that's probably down to the fact that he's had, so many failed or false starts in his career, and he's trying to get a kickstart, and he's trying to, start making waves in his career, start moving forward, getting some traction, getting some momentum, and everywhere he goes, it starts off well, and then it just, for whatever reason, dissolves. And I think he's sort of grown a thick skin because of that. I think he's probably within his own head thinking, this is going amazingly well, but we've been here before, and if it all, if I turn around at the end of the season and say I want to stay here, there's every chance the club's going to say, yeah, we don't want to splash out that money. We've seen this other player for half the price. So on your bike, back down to Spurs or whatever. So I think he's trying to sort of just steady his own ship and not sort of commit in his own head. If I'm honest, he looks like he's enjoying his football, and he's absolutely perfect for the role. And as much as I love Jota, if it was one or the other, it's not even a coin flip. It's not even a consideration. It's CCV, and we need him because, when was the last time we had that level of stability and predictability at the back? When was the last time? It was Van Dijk, but we had Ambrose next to him. So it was like complete solid next to Bomb. Whereas now we've got complete solid next to someone who's properly grown into that role in Starfelt, and I think they've got a really good partnership going on. I think if I was CCV, I would be wanting to stay because it's the first time in his career he's actually been the stick on centre back, first choice every single time. All the fans love him. He doesn't put wrong, and he's starting to get noticed. He's starting to make a name for himself, and that's how he's building his career. No. But if he just, puts all his eggs in one basket and thinks, this is where I'm going to be for the next few seasons, we all know what the Celtic ball's like. Well, actually, The fact is, we don't know what they think. We don't know what their processes are, and they don't really seem to make sense. So would anybody be surprised if suddenly he'd just gone back and he'd gone back to Spurs and we didn't even hear anything from Celtic about it? We'll have to hear secondhand from somebody else after the fact. So I think he's probably just aware of that. I think it's just too smart to think, this is me, this is it, this is where I want to be. He's just keeping his head down, doing his thing.
Yeah, and maybe that's the best thing for him just now. Like you say, just keep your head down and just play your football and just see what happens. I think there's a contract already written up for him. I think he's going to sign.
I think it's done.
You think it's done?
I think it's done.
I think the ink's dried. I think he has got a contract sitting in front of him, and I think he will be a Celtic for next season. I have to say, I absolutely love CCV. Like you said, when was the last time he had a real calm, composing centre back? Like it's probably Virgil van Dijk, and I mean, he's not only has he improved through the season, he's improved Carl Starfelt. Starfelt had a great game. I think he defends brilliantly. What I love about Starfelt, right, is Starfelt's that guy on a night out that's full of confidence. Maybe a little bit too much confidence, and he's going to get himself into a little bit of bother. You'll probably start on the wrong guy, maybe starting on 3 or 4 guys, and then you've got big CCV is going to come along and him to say, right, you just, steady on. It's because he knows CCV's there. He knows I can be that guy that mouths off to somebody because I know my pal's going to clean up my mess for me. That's the kind of guy Starfelt is.
That's a good.
That's just what he is. He's the guy that causes it because he can't help himself. Like that run he did today, it was brilliant. That confidence, you've seen that confidence come, but then he lost the ball and it was like, oh, for good. Get back. What are you doing? You got a bit of a nosebleed. And Cameron Carter-Vickers was there to sort that one out. And I think having those two next season is a brilliant foundation for us to build on next season. I think they calm everybody at the back. Joe Hart, on the other hand, I love Joe Hart. He cracks me up so much. Like, he wants that ball so fast to get it going, but then he hesitates so much that it allows us to almost be swarmed in. And then he puts Starfelt under so much pressure that I think is where he gets a lot of the stick. And it's almost not his fault. Like, Starfelt does brilliantly in the defensive side of things, but I think he gets put under a lot of pressure from Joe Hart.
But Joe Hart came up with a big save again the day, didn't he?
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Big game, Joe. He was perhaps the difference between the draw and the loss today.
Definitely.
David,
sorry, on you go, Terry.
David, how do you feel about the playing out from the back? Because I totally get that's what Ange wants, but there's sometimes where it gets very frustrating, where it's just so obvious that it's too tight, and we still try to do it, and we end up in trouble. There was a few times today where Starfelt was left. It's almost like pass the baby. And Joe Hart sometimes gets it, and he's the one that has to kick it, and he's thinking, I'm going to go in here and Ange's going to kill me. Sometimes it's CCV, sometimes it's Starfelt, but there is a time and a place for it, and I totally get the benefits. You can see when you beat the press, you create chances, but there's also times where it's like Joe saying to Starfelt, over to you. If you lose it, it's your fault. And he's going to Carter-Vickers, over to you. If you lose it, it's your fault. And I just think there's sometimes for in-game decisions where those guys take control. I know what Ange has told them before the match, but there's just times where I think, you know what, just knock it long, because it's too tight. It's too tight. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a lack of game management. You know what I mean?
Sometimes the players have got to use a wee bit of their own intuition in certain scenarios, just knock it long, clear it. But again, what Ange just told them, we're not privy to, Don't
ask for permission, ask for forgiveness sometimes, Sorry, boss, but I'm getting rid of that ball right now, because they were penning us in at one point, and me and my dad I was screaming at the telly, just punt it long, just get rid. And don't get me wrong, see when Ange Ball is in full flow out from the back, it's great to watch. It is amazing to watch, but when it doesn't work, by God, it doesn't fucking work.
Just remember at the start of the
they
season,
panic.
David, do you remember at the start of the season was at Alkmaar we were playing the qualifier, the game at home, and there was a moment with about 10, 15 minutes to go where we were a bit under the cosh and Joe Hart took it upon himself. There was like a break in play and he went to Ange and basically told him, this isn't working, this playing out from the back. And we actually changed for the last 10, 15 minutes where we began, just clear it, just knock it long, get it away.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, it seems like that's like the only time that's ever happened this season where somebody's actually said to Ange, we need to change this up a wee bit here because, we're under a lot of pressure. But yeah, sometimes I think they do need to just. It helps off the fans' nerves in the stands anyway. I can tell you that much for nothing because there were points today where, I think a lot of people were really, really nervous in the stadium.
Look at the chance that, okay, he was ruled offside, but look at the chance that almost happened when we did finally when Joe Hart just went, fuck it, and just punted it long. I don't want to see that every game. I'm not saying that we need to start being long ball merchants in the slightest. I love watching the slick style of football, and obviously I think every Celtic fan does. But like you say, Terry, there is a time and a place, and that time and a place was not happening during the game. Bruce,
my brother, I was watching a game with my brother, and he says to me, why are we doing this? Why are we playing these goal kicks out short? And just at that time when he asked me, we broke through the press and we got through and we created a great chance. And I said, that's why Ange wants us to do it. But how many times does that happen? And how many times do we give the ball away and put ourselves in trouble? And it's trying to weigh up, what's the percentages here? If we do this every time, are we going to create a chance or are we going to give a chance away?
Yeah, there was a few times when we had the ball in the box, and it wasn't the case that there's passing it from the back, and then there's just passing it back and forward to each other, like Joe Hart and Starfelt, and it's like you said, neither of them wanted the ball, but neither one of them wanted to take the initiative to just say, "Sorry, Ange, I need to get it. I need to get it up the field and put, maybe it's like that." Do you remember that game? I think it was it might have been the 2-1 game a couple of seasons ago, where straight from kickoff, and we just punted it right up into the far corner.
It was the one Johnny Hayes scored late on at Ibrox. It was that one.
Was that game? Was it that game? It was to get us pressing up the field and just getting them hemmed in for a bit. I just felt that whole second half, we were allowing them too much of the ball and too much. We were showing too much of ourselves to them. We weren't playing the fixture almost. It's like sometimes we don't really learn. I think the best example of how frustrating the passing at the back can be is that Hibs game, the 1-0 at Easter Road, when they took it so far into the corner they didn't know what to do with it, and it almost led to Hibs winning goal. Bruce, what's your thoughts on the passing out from the back? Do you feel it causes more problems for us than it does create problems for the opposition?
I think it causes more problems for us as a support than it does for them as players. I think they trust the process, know what's happening, and when all that shit's happening and we're all like, what the fuck? Pass it, get rid of it. Why are you passing it back? There's a good ball there. They're just thinking, trust in the process. This is what we've learned, blah, blah, blah. And I'm all for that. That's all fine. But you do that 2 or 3 times, it doesn't work 2 or 3 times. Do something else, because it's not going to work the 4th time. It's like Einstein, isn't it? When he said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Yeah. CCV's got the ball and he passes it to Starfelt, he passes it to Hart, he passes it out to Ralston, it comes back to Hart, out to Taylor, and then we get pressed and it's a Rangers throw-in. Then we get the ball again and it's Starfelt and he gives it to Hart, who gives it to CCV, who gives it to Ralston, who loses it, and it's a throw-in. Stop doing it. We're going to give the ball opportunities. so do something else. And for me, it was quite Rodgers-esque. If you saw like the final season that Rodgers was in charge, literally, like, even when we were winning, watching Celtic was just like, 60% of the time at least, it was just watching them passing it around at the back. And most of the time, fine, because we weren't being pressed. But every time we came up against a team that would press us, we lost the ball. And when we were against a good opposition, like in Europe or whatever, we didn't just lose the ball, we also lost a goal. And then we'd kick off and we'd kick it back to the back and we'd start playing it around again. And then, 13 minutes later, it's 2-0 and we're 2-0 down. And then we do it again. And you're just thinking, can you not see what's playing out? Something needs to change. If it's not working, do something else. I'm all for having one plan, because neurologically, the way we operate and our brains operate as humans is, if we know we have a plan B, then we're less likely to implement plan A effectively, because we've always got one eye on plan B. So we're thinking, we'll half-ass plan A, and then if that doesn't work, we'll half-ass plan B. Whereas if you don't have a plan B, you think, right, if this doesn't work, we're screwed. So we need to get plan A right. But there has to be a plan B. No matter how you look at it, if something isn't working, don't do it again. Do something else, because it never.
The argument there, you could say, is the Dundee United game, where Abada scored the last minute goal, because it wasn't going our way, the way we were playing, and it was very much a start again, try, didn't work, okay, start again, try, and it was almost getting to the point where we were all saying, when are you going to change it? We need to change it. And of course, the goal came eventually, and it was almost a case of, I told you so. Just, it's that whole trust the system. And I think we can all say the majority of the season we have trusted the system. When it works, it's a great thing to see, and we've given some real better teams, maybe better teams than us, a real good go in Europe. And I think it's going to be an even higher step up in class next season, if we, so long as we don't see a crazy turnaround in the Liverpool fixture and see Spanish champions. We will be up against a much higher caliber of opposition. Do you, Phil, think that the way that we set out to play and continue to play, do you think it's going to be effective in Europe next season?
I think a lot of it at the moment's down to the personnel we bring in the summer. And right now we don't know what it's going to be. We don't know who's going to sign and whatnot. Because Ange will definitely want to play the same, system for the most part. But yeah, he'll have ideas already who he wants to bring in that can bring us up to that level to compete. But yeah, the Champions League, we're going to definitely, it's two of the teams anyway, pot 1 and pot 2 are going to be pretty frightening. It's going to be a case of we're going to have to compete with the pot 3 team to ensure that we can maybe get in the Europa League in the second half of the season. But yeah, at the moment it's too early to predict. It's all going to just come down to who we bring in, and that, because there is still a bit of dead wood within the Celtic squad that does need shipped out. And yeah, but we'll just see. We'll just see what happens, man. And I'm excited for it anyway, regardless. It's going to be an emotional roller coaster anyway, man. Whatever happens next season in Europe, it's going to be an adventure.
Yes, and also, going to be an adventure.
Don't lose as well as who we bring in over the summer.
Yeah.
I think that's the main priority. Don't lose the main guys.
Yeah.
Because I'm just this whole season building a team, building a way of playing, building a process, cementing it in. And now every player knows their job. But if you lose, for example, Cameron Carter-Vickers, what do we lose there? Do we just lose a really good player, or do we also lose a way of playing? Do we lose a bit of identity? Do we lose stability? Do we lose fortitude? We lose all of that, all in one, just because he goes. So, yeah, we need to be mindful of that.
Now, it's just gone 5:15, so we're going to wrap up soon. But before we do that, I couldn't help but spot famous face in the crowd today, and I don't know about you guys, but are we going to see John Terry to Celtic next season?
Oh my god!
That was
Is this a rumor, or are we just thinking of things a wee bit?
Nah, just playing about. I seen him obviously with that Celtic scarf round his neck today, which I was quite surprised. You'll see plenty of big names at Celtic Rangers games, but they don't usually put a scarf around their affiliate themselves with a certain club. So, is John Terry in a job at the moment? Is he doing anything? If he is, if he's looking for a job, look up your wives.
What club? He would better not be with Spurs, because if he's currently contracted with Spurs, then I'd be worried about that, because maybe he's there to replace Carter Vickers.
He was assistant manager at Aston Villa when Dean Smith was the manager, but he got ousted when Smith got sacked and Gerrard came in and took over. I don't think he's with a club now, but he said before, him and his brother, as they were growing up, they did that whole thing. They had their favourite Scottish team. His brother chose Rangers and he chose Celtic. He said many times in the past, and there was it the Petrov charity game a few years ago? He came up and played in that as well.
Yeah,
and said he'd always wanted to go on a Celtic shirt. It was the Petrov one, I'm sure, wasn't it?
Yeah, I went to. Yeah, you're right, man. Yeah.
Would you have John Terry as a backroom staff? Would he bring something? Would he bring something to Celtic?
Experience-wise, yeah. I mean, he was a big time player and won a lot of stuff, and he was a leader on the park. Obviously, he's got a bit of a unsavoury reputation for other things off the park. So I don't know if it's a circus that Ange would want when you look at it that way. I think Ange is very much, he'll want his own people. He won't want something that's going to bring a media circus with it, and I think John Terry would do that. He'd be an outside distraction.
Outside distraction. I don't know. It's one of those ones where it's like, I think he could, he could bring a lot to Celtic. Would I want him at Celtic is the real question. Probably not. But I do believe he would bring a hell of a lot of experience. I think he could certainly help out. Like, because he can be our defensive coach. I still don't think we have one.
No.
Whether that would be something he would be interested in, I doubt it. But there's a lot of big names getting thrown about coming up to the Scottish League. I don't know if they're
personality, doesn't it? Like if he is interested, he'll have to speak with Ange, and Ange is going to assess, basically work out fits the mold, and if he's going to carry the narrative, and if he's going to be that right character, and if he isn't, he's not in the door. And if he is, basically, if he comes in, I'll trust that because I trust Ange. So if he's there, he's right. If he's not, he's not.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely. I think he was just there enjoying the game, to be fair. But a wee bit of tongue-in-cheek to finish off the show. We've just went over the hour mark. We've got 166 viewers at the moment.
Nice. Hope they'll hit the like button.
Yeah, make sure you like and subscribe. You guys have been putting lots of comments in today. I've not been too wild on the comment button because I'm still adjusting. I'm adjusting my seat. I'm checking the mirror, and all I can see is Rangers in the back. So I think we will end it there.
Yes.
Well done, Celtic. I think you have done us all proud in getting back the title. It's not fully done yet, but let's be serious. I think it's all but over. Thank you, gents, for joining us. Bruce, you've got one thing to say before we go?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, this is a wee treat for you. 163 viewers. You're about to get the sweet tones of the Bhoycie Bus theme tune by Brucey Boy himself. Hit it away, Brucey Boy. Yes, well done, mate.
Yes.
Thank you everyone for joining. Bhoycie will be back on Monday with Jono for the Monday Club. We'll see you all then. Thank you.
Respect.
Deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.